Hey folks, this is Andu, and I'm here with a project that has been on my to-do list for longer than I care to say. I've been tinkering with this blaster for a long time, trying to figure out how to make it work. Long story short, I have a friend at school who wants a blaster well-suited to his playstyle. And this gentleman tends to be an original zombie in HVZ or some sort of hunter in an assassination game. He's very good at what he does. And what he wants is something with the Firestrike's ergonomics and the Triad's functionality. So he bought both of these blasters, and I'm tinkering with them, and I've been having a lot of trouble getting things working. In fact, I think I lost all the videos, if I took any, when I was working on this a long time ago. I can't find them, so I'm starting afresh. Now you can see the first thing I've done. I drilled through this back casing on the Triad and loosened the screw, which means I should be able to pop this whole section out. Now maybe I tighten that screw back down again. That's a very good possibility. But anyway, what I need to do is put this head right here. And I've thought of a lot of ways to do it, and most of those haven't worked out. So, the end of the block, which is a quarter, essentially, half a semester, the end of the block is coming, which means I have new classes coming up, and I want to get this done for the customer and get to work on some of my own projects. So, here goes. Okay, so I didn't come up with this. I don't remember who did. If I can find the article, I think it was on Nerf Haven, where someone was explaining how to take apart a Triad. I will put that in the link in the description below. And you don't want to pry this back panel off of a Triad. I'll show why in a minute. You can see I just drilled in the back, undid the screw, and there's friction that's holding this in as well, which is why I couldn't pull this out before, but now it's a little further out. And this back panel just comes right out. Here you can see the air restrictor assembly. Now, you don't want to pull those out unless you want to turn this into a shotgun. If you pull these air restrictors out, all three darts will fire at once, and certainly not as hard as one dart, going at a time. Now, you can see stress marks right here near my thumb and over here. That's because I was trying to pry this out gently, I didn't go too hard, with a screwdriver and stuff like that. And the truth is, this is all solvent welded together, I'm fairly certain, in addition to having these mechanical clips on either side, which I busted out, so it still doesn't come apart. So, you can see that's put stress here, where supports run from the back to the front. I actually need this piece intact, so I'm setting that aside. Now the thing is, the air comes in from the plunger up through here. You see there's that black rubber seal. Now like I said, there's a friction fit here because this air seal is absolutely perfect, beyond perfect. When this slides in place, that rubber gets compressed by this piece, which is what goes to the hole that's now here and creates such a perfect air seal. So in order to maintain that air seal, if I still need it, I'm not entirely certain, but I am going to take my Dremel and try to, as cleanly as possible, remove all the rest of the stuff off this handle, etc. I might use this plunger handle and trigger on a single Triad at some point, a super jolt, if you will. So, that's what that is, and on to the next segment. Now, the Firestrike has some pretty cool internals. You can see the battery door, which is held closed by just one screw, completes the circuit for the batteries. The switch, there's a switch down here, that's for sure. This light assembly is, I really wanted to maintain it, but this is probably going to have to come out to make this work, just because I'm going to end up needing this space for the air to move through. Now, the plunger assembly comes out sort of as one solid piece. You can see there we've got the catch, the spring, the, whatever you want to call it, the draw, handle, priming, loop, whatever. I forget the name. And over here you can see the plunger tube, barrel, and these orange pieces that go into these slots in the shell are all kind of one piece together. They're fastened together in some way. Additionally, this muzzle set here is loose, but it fits on here, well, just mechanically. I'm sure I'll be able to pry this apart a little bit and just take this off. Just have to warp this plastic a little bit, but it'll go back. So, I think it's time to get the Dremel out. Before I get the Dremel out, I'm going to show you how the circuit comes out. And I haven't actually done it yet, but I'm fairly certain this just sits in here. And we can gently pull it upwards. And there we go. It just lifts right out, which is very nice for me because now I don't need to worry about that. And the other part of the circuit is here in the battery door that doesn't need to come out, and the batteries are there. I'll go there. Now, I will note that these are separate pieces, and it looks like these are mechanically fastened for sure with these little latches. However, I've heard that these are also solvent welded together. I really don't know. Maybe not. I do know they can be taken apart because Johnson Arms has done it, which makes paint jobs a lot easier, and that certainly is cool. Now I'm going to get to work on the Triad. I've started dremeling the Triad, and I'm using a very thin grinding disc for my Dremel. Something to note about these, if you push them this way, you know, up and down, too far, they will snap very easily. Also, so you can see I've got a fairly clean cut, went in from both sides here. Just got to pull this plastic out, and this part is totally free right now. Wow, yeah, it doesn't want to move too much, but you can see there it moves. So, safety notes. I am wearing safety glasses, as you always should when working with power tools or even not power tools. If you're doing something where anything could potentially do anything to hurt your eyes, would you rather read words on a page or would you rather feel words on a page with your fingers? Totally up to you. Another important safety thing, when you are plugging in power tools, make sure they are off. And I didn't do that this time. So when I plugged it in, my Dremel turned on. I just happened to be very fortunate that one, it was at a very low setting, so the torque wasn't very bad, and it didn't fly around in my hand or roll around on its own, and I had a firm grip on the Dremel. So there's that. Also, this might make the job a little easier. You'll notice as I started digging in here, that black, I hit rubber, and that was making it very hard to cut. That also meant that this rubber seal goes down into the plunger, and I couldn't figure out how they would have put it in from the bottom, so I reached in with my thumb, and I pulled up, and look at that. It just comes right out. So yes, it's got a little cut in it. That's not that bad, and I am sure I will find some way to use this to help my project in the future. And there you can see the top of the plunger head. If you don't believe me, I will prime, and it's gone. And I'm going to use my toes to hold the plunger as I release it, and there's the plunger head again. So I could pull that off just to make sure I don't damage it, because I want to use this again in the future for something else. But my problem is, idiot of idiots, I forgot all my small screwdrivers elsewhere. So I'm just going to keep my cut high and avoid the plunger head, and on to the next segment. So it's off, and I'm going to capture the final moment. There we go. And yes, all this plastic looks, you know, like a mess, because it is, but I am very pleased. I think I have a very clean cut here, and I didn't hit the plunger head. I came very, very close at the back, very close, but that plunger is 100% usable right now, as is this trigger and handle, and I will use this for something cool in the future. And now I am going to go see about mating this to the Firestrike. So I've got the plunger system sitting in here, and one of the original ideas I had was to pipe air straight from here into the back, right behind the bottom barrel, and that just wouldn't work because then it would go around the air restrictor that allows the bottom barrel to fire at all. So what I'm thinking of doing is chopping all this out of the shell here, as well as the barrel, sealing up the front of this plunger tube, and then putting a brass or plastic tube down, around, and then up into the Triad head. I might have to have it a little forward like that. I don't know how much that will reduce airflow, which is why I got a stronger spring from Orange Modworks. That will be in a later segment. And, well, time for trial and error. Alright, a couple of notes about the Firestrike plunger system before my camera runs out of charge. First of all, this piece here that fills in the slots on the side isn't that hard to remove. You just push the smaller of the two clips, one big up here, one small back here, back a little bit, and it just comes right off. Another thing, normally Elite blasters have excellent air seals all the way through. This one, I'm not going to be able to show you in the camera, but I can see past the seal at the back of the tube. It does get better at the front, but I may definitely put one wrap of Teflon tape on this. The plunger is already padded with soft rubber, which is nice. The head's also free spinning, which is interesting and kind of cool. And there are air release holes, presumably to protect against dry fire. I don't know if I'm going to plug those or not. We shall see. And then I'm going to try to take this off, and I don't know that that'll be super easy. This looks like it was designed to go together once and then never come apart again. If I get this off, I will be sure to document it. With a little bit of work and force from with my thumbs and fingernails, it wasn't too difficult. I've finally gotten this loose, and let's see if it just... The other side's, of course, hooked in stronger now. I really don't need this barrel intact, and that just comes off. After all, no gluing or anything. And boy, oh boy, look at this. The air restrictor is a separate, self-contained piece. So, my oh my, I may definitely have to get creative with plugging this back up. Maybe. Just maybe. And, well, there's actually a kind of a good trick for slightly extending the draw on here. But I'm really not quite sure how I'm going to do this now. I might just attach it directly to each other like this. Something I've thought of, and then vent the air around. But then this would have to go over the air tube. So we shall see. You can also pull the air restrictor assembly apart just with your fingernails. It isn't difficult at all. And this actually makes the air restrictor removal very easy for a standard Firestrike mod, but this isn't a standard Firestrike mod. Most of this is going to have to go, but I'm glad I didn't have to use my Dremel to take all this apart. So I'm fairly certain the way this whole thing is going to work, I don't want to move this plunger tube forward or back, so I just have it seated where it normally would go. And since this piece is here, even though pulling this out could allow me to extend the draw length a little bit, allow it to slam forward further, I don't want to bother doing that. Also, I'm not quite sure how the spring would actually interact or not. Anyway, having trouble composing my thoughts right now. What I want to do is attach this piece permanently to this one, and then this piece to the back of this. And so this will end up sitting right about there in the blaster, and this will in fact make the blaster longer, but I think it will still work pretty darn well. I'm checking here. The blues don't quite match up, but that's not a super big problem since eventually this will be painted. But anyway, I need to start cutting shell so that this part essentially is gone. I will need to chop the top off this piece as well as a notch down here, and I'm going to have just enough room here for the air pipe to come out right here, around, and then up into the bottom of the Triad head. So I'm going to get work on that. When I determined where my cut lines are going to have to be for the shell, you can see I traced them lightly with my thin disc, my thin grinding cutting disc on my Dremel. So now I know exactly where I want to go. And I cut these a little small, a little, for instance, I didn't cut as far down as I thought I might have to go, but this gives me room to sand down for adjustments rather than having to worry about a gap being there or trying to figure out how to fill a gap and add on. I can remove rather than add as needed. Here you will notice the only plastic still really holding this other piece in, it was attached to both, is this screw post that is just going to have to go. Upon test fitting, I can see the head is sitting much higher than I would like, so I'm going to have to Dremel out some plastic here and here, and that ought to do it. I can see that in order to make that plastic piece at the front of the plunger attach to the back of the Triad head, I've got some space to fill, you can see. So I'm going to cut the shell a little further back, I think, which will be good because this side is a nice 90-degree angle, very straight, just the way I want it to be. And this one, as you can see, is a little bit goes back towards the bottom. So it cuts in at a slight angle, very slight, but still it's a gap I don't want to have to fill. The only thing is I'm going to have to cut one little part right above my thumb of this clip lock to fill in that gap because there isn't much space left, and that's just because I don't want to leave a hole in the shell, but we'll see how far I have to cut this back. If I'm able to leave any little bar over here at all, I might have to cut this piece off as well, just to sand the whole thing back far enough to make this fit. So I've been busy with my Dremel. You can see I've scuffed up the back face of this a little bit, as well as chopping some stuff out of the top here. I did a lot of trial and error and grinding away slowly of the plastic shell here, and this fits almost just how I would like it. Now you can see I wanted to leave this piece here, so I did Dremel down the clip itself, as well as leaving a little more of the rail than I did the rest of the shell. And when it goes together, it fits very, very well, as you can see. It's very snug, very clean, just the way I like it. It's not 100% done, but I think it's pretty darn cool.